It's scarce.
Someone killed at least 4 children in Oakland County, Michigan between 1976 and 1977. Investigators have been working for decades to determine who the serial killer is and if he is still alive. Those who knew the victims, their families, friends, classmates, teachers, coaches and neighbors, have been forever changed by what happened during the 13-month period from February 1976 to March 1977. In that time, the 4 children were abducted and murdered with their bodies left in various locations within or just outside Oakland County. There were at least 2 other murder cases that investigators believe may have been victims of the Oakland County Child Killer, or the babysitter killer, as some called him. The ensuing murder investigation was the largest of its kind in U.S. history at the time. First victim: 12-year-old Mark Stebbins and his older brother Mike regularly hung out together at an American Legion Hall at 9 Mile and Woodward, about a mile from their home in Ferndale, Michigan. The Veterans Organization was a safe place for the boys to spend time, and on a snowy Sunday in February 1976, they walked to the hall to play pool. After a while, Mark, described as a good student who liked to spend time alone, said he wanted to walk home to watch television. Mark was last seen and heard from at 1:30 p.m. February 15, 1978. He talked to his mother on the phone. He was letting her know that he was leaving the American Legion Hall to head home. It was a path he had taken countless times before, both with his brother and by himself. But on this day, Mark did not arrive home, and his mother, Ruth, called police in a panic. While Mark Stebbins' disappearance worried those who knew him, it was not the type of case that would normally receive widespread media attention. Mark's parents were divorced and he lived with his mother. He came from a Roman Catholic family. At about 11:45 a.m. February 19, 1976, a businessman named Mark Botimer left his office building and headed toward a drugstore located inside the New Orleans Mall at 10 Mile and Greenfield Roads. On his way, something caught his eye in the northeast corner of the parking lot. He saw what looked like a mannequin dressed in a blue jacket and jeans. But as he got closer, he knew he stumbled into a situation much more grim. It was a body. A human body. It was the lifeless body of 12-year-old Mark Stebbins. Another person told police that they walked their dog around that parking lot, just so it could get some exercise. That was around 9:30 a.m. the same morning the body was found. The man said his dog was on a 20-foot leash and they walked that part of the lot. He said if that body was there at the time, his dog would have found it. If that's true, Mark's body wasn't there at 9:30 a.m., but it was at 11:45 a.m. when Mark Botimer found him. That means there was a 2-hour and 15-minute window in which someone or some people dumped Mark's body in the area. Mark was a 7th grader at Lincoln Junior High School. He stood 4 feet 8 inches and weighed about 100 pounds. His strawberry blonde hair would have likely been covered by the hood on his parka as he walked in the cold, thin air. The autopsy showed the cause of death as asphyxia by way of smothering, but the report also showed rope burns on his neck, wrists and ankles. It appeared that Mark was also sexually assaulted. L. Brooks Patterson, who was the Oakland County prosecutor at the time, said Mark's body was washed by an autopsy team, washing away any fingerprints. His second victim, a 12-year-old Jill Robinson, lived with her mother Carol Robinson in Royal Oak and visited her father regularly. Her family was Roman Catholic. She was described as a loner and a smart, good student. Carol Robinson had 3 daughters and was recently divorced. She and her oldest, Jill, would butt heads, and on one occasion in December of 1976 they did just that. It was an argument that led to Jill running away from home. According to Carol, Jill's mother, the two were arguing about biscuits. Jill was asked to help make them for dinner. She refused. Sometime after a heated back and forth, Carol told her to leave until she became part of the family. Jill went to her room, packed up her clothes and a plaid blanket into a denim bag. Before she left, she dressed herself in blue jeans, a shirt, an orange winter coat and a blue knit cap with a yellow design on it, and then she would leave, just like her mother asked her to. She rode her bike away from her mother and her home. Jill would later be seen by a family friend at a hobby shop on Woodward Avenue, just 4 and 2 blocks away from her mother's home. The next morning, 2 witnesses said they saw her in the Donut Depot on Maple Road. This was between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. Jill's father, Thomas Robinson, made a call to police at 11:30 p.m. the day she left. Jill was found on the side of I-75, north of Big Beaver Road. She was laying on her back, fully clothed, not bound in any way, but a ring of deep dark red surrounded her head. The killer had transported her here, then shot her at close range in the head with a shotgun. It was later decided that Jill was fed and cared for at least 3 days. She seemed to be washed, clean and with no signs of sexual abuse at all. The next victim disappeared just a week later, on January 2, 1977, after leaving a party store just 4 blocks from her house in nearby Berkeley, Michigan. 10-year-old Christine Mihalik had bought a magazine and was walking along a busy thoroughfare in broad daylight when she vanished. Because Jill's body had been found so recently, Christine's disappearance was treated with far more urgency. Officers canvassed the neighborhood looking for witnesses and clues but found nothing. A week after Christine vanished, police assumed the worst, and that scared them. These fears were realized when snow fell on January 22, 1977, 19 days after Christine's disappearance. Mail carrier Jerry Wozni discovered Christine's body in a ditch along a dead-end road in Franklin, Michigan, another Oakland County town. "I saw a hand. It scared the hell out of me," Wozni told reporters. He said it appeared that snow had been tossed on top of her body to make her difficult to spot. The headlines the next day read, "Slayings Terrorize County." The final victim. Less than 2 months later, the terror reached the King family. On March 16, 1977, 11-year-old Tim asked his sister Kathy for 30 cents so he could buy candy from a drugstore 3 blocks from home. He left his house in Birmingham, Michigan, at about 8:15 p.m. and skateboarded to the Hunter Maple Pharmacy. The store clerk, Amy Walters, saw him leave with his candy at about 8:30 p.m. through a rear door that led to a darkened parking lot. Tim never returned home. Tim King's body was found a week later. Like the other victims, he had been kept alive much of the time he had been missing. Officials believed that he was suffocated within an hour of being found. While Tim was missing, his mother had written a letter to the Detroit News, pleading for him to come home for some Kentucky Fried Chicken, his favorite meal. An autopsy of the body revealed the food that he had eaten just before he was killed, fried chicken. Tim's meticulously clean body was found in a ditch along a well-traveled dirt road in Livonia, Michigan, with his skateboard placed next to it. The location marked a slight change in pattern, as Livonia fell in Wayne County, rather than neighboring Oakland. Police and sheriff's deputies from both jurisdictions were therefore dedicated to the case. Enough witnesses finally came forward for the police to create a sketch of a suspect. The face that emerged belonged to a white man with dark hair, a prominent nose, and thick lips. Bushy mud on cops ran down his cheeks. An accompanying psychological profile told the community they were looking for someone from 20 to 35 years old, who was well educated and worked in a white-collar job with enough flexibility to give him the freedom to carry out his terrible crimes. "We believe that he appears sane 99% of the time," said Birmingham Police Chief Jerry Tobin, who suggested that the killer might be seeing a psychiatrist. Tobin urged anyone in the medical or legal professions to come forward with any information. The police also began to suspect that the killer was being protected by someone close to him, a relative or a friend. It was probably because of that suspicion that family members of the victims were stonewalled by investigators. This was very frustrating to Tim's parents, who had been especially cooperative in humoring investigators' hunches early on. Detectives had believed that whoever was holding Tim hostage would react badly to his parents' emotional pleas. So the couple had agreed to conceal their grief and keep their tone positive during news conferences. The Kings felt that they had received little cooperation from the authorities in return and subsequently sued the county prosecutor's office, hoping to force it to release more evidence from the case. In 2012, the office did release 6,000 pages of case documents. Suspects. Little official information meant that over the years, rumors have abounded over the identity of the Oakland County Child Killer. Was he a mysterious man named John, or a priest, or someone posing as a police officer? Few actual names were publicly tied to the case. Among the first was David Norberg, an auto worker who drove a car that looked similar to one described near Tim's abduction site. Norberg had been suspected of killing 2 girls in the late 1970s, though he was not convicted. After he died in a car crash in 1981, his wife found a small silver cross inscribed with the name Christine. She remembered the girl who had been the Oakland County Child Killer's 3rd victim and showed the cross to Christine's aunt, who said it was identical to one Christine had worn at the Romeo Peach Festival shortly before her death. Police exhumed Norberg's body in 1999 to see if his DNA matched evidence from the case, but the results did not tie him to the murders. Some investigators say that there is no way that Norberg, a heavy drinker, would have been able to lure stranger danger-conscious children into his car, and he has largely been dismissed as a suspect. A convicted pedophile named Christopher Bush was on the shortlist for the King family, and Erica McAvoy, Christine's half-sister. The son of a wealthy auto executive, Bush lived in the area at the time. He was questioned soon after Tim's death, and he admitted to investigators that he was a pedophile. He also drove a car that looked similar to one spotted at one of the abductions. Investigators wanted to keep him in jail, but L. Brooks Patterson, who headed the prosecutor's office during the killings, released him as part of a plea deal. In November 1978, just a few months later, Bush killed himself in his home. A drawing of a screaming boy that resembled Mark Stebbins was reportedly found pinned to the wall. Another suspect is James Gunnels, a 56-year-old man connected to Christine's murder through DNA evidence. In 2012, investigators revealed that a strand of hair found on Christine was a mitochondrial match for Gunnels, meaning that it could have come from him or someone on his mother's side of the family. Gunnels was no more than 16 when the crimes were committed, and he had been raped by Bush. In 2012, Gunnels met with the King family and insisted he knew nothing of the crimes. In 2012, another tenuous DNA test produced a suspect named Arch Sloan, who was serving a life sentence for the rape of a 10-year-old boy in 1983. A hair found in his 1966 Pontiac Bonneville matched hair found at both Mark and Tim's crime scenes. Although the hair was not Sloan's, investigators believed it belonged to an acquaintance of his. While the King and Mihalik families zeroed in on Bush as a suspect, Mark Stebbins' family filed a wrongful death lawsuit in 2007 against Theodore Lamborghini, a man who, like Sloan, was in prison for life on assault convictions. David A. Binkley, a lawyer representing the Stebbins family, said that his clients did not think Lamborghini acted alone and hoped the suit would help to uncover more information. He pointed to Lamborghini's refusal to take a polygraph test despite being offered a massively reduced prison sentence if he answered questions about the Oakland County child killings. "Wouldn't you deny being the Oakland County child killer?" Binkley said. Despite the family's suspicions, the suit was dismissed in 2008. But the presiding judge left room for it to be refiled if more evidence should come to light. Tim's father, Barry King, has replayed time and again how he had talked to his son after the community learned of Christine's death. "All my kids remember me telling Tim, if anyone tries to pick you up, drop everything and run and scream," he said. "Part of the tragedy to me is, once Tim got into the car, he knew what would happen. That's the worst part of it all. As long as the mystery of the Oakland County child killer remains unsolved, the Kings and the other victims' families will remain haunted by the events of over 40 years ago, still searching for answers that always seem just out of reach." Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe.